Hi, Arena.
Hi Ben, good to see you again. And I have a couple of questions based on recent developments. Just today, the Human Rights Watch, a major human rights NGO, made a very sensational claim uh, supporting Armenia's comment that allegedly Azerbaijan has been using Israeli cluster bombs to attack civilians. And in the support of this claim, HRW pointed to four sites on the map and claimed that this information was based on their on the ground assessment. However, other sources have confirmed that HRW has not been present in Azerbaijan since before the start of the war. Can you comment on whether it's possible to assess to make an assessment of an attack, of an alleged attack, without being in physical presence? And if so, how would that be done?
I'll absolutely comment on that. Thank you very much. Anybody that's seen my Twitter knows that I'm calling bullshit on it. Um, there has been an extreme limitation of of groups such as HRW or even us on the ground in Azerbaijan during this conflict, and the international community deserves to know that that is for the safety of journalists and the safety of researchers such as myself and yourself. It's not an opportunity for Azerbaijan to um, falsify claims or anything else because they're wanting to protect us. Now we will be on the ground very soon. We're working that out. We're one of the few organizations that are going to be able to do that. Um, but let me go back to the claim from HRW. I'm not going to defame or debase their previous work because they have done some good work. However, this is grandstanding. Nobody is on the ground there. No, there is no way that they were able to do any kind of research on the ground or collaborate any information on the ground that would back up such a baseless claim. I mean, it's as simple as pulling up a map of Azerbaijan and dropping some pins from a graphical nature and saying that cluster munitions were used at these sites. I don't believe that they actually know what cluster munitions are or what they do, to be real honest with you. Um, if they were to use cluster munitions, pardon me, I'm still getting used to these teeth. Um, it would be extremely dangerous. They are, in fact, frowned upon in use during war at all, let alone where population might be non combatants and things of that nature because of their destructive nature. The reality of it is there are high explosive warheads that can look like cluster munitions, but there were no cluster munitions used here, and the claims that these were made in Israel are also baseless. You know, there are many countries that make these type of weapons, and they all basically do the same thing. I find it hard to believe that there is debris laying around that has made in Israel stamped on it. I mean, realistically.
So in our previous conversation, you did describe a little bit what a cluster bomb is, but if you could elaborate on a little bit more and how you would tell the difference between that and some other type of weapon, such as the warhead you just mentioned.
So a cluster munition is designed to have multiple explosions released from a single point. Sometimes it's delivered in the form of a rocket. Typically, it's going to be delivered in the form of a bomb that disperses clusters of explosives over a certain area at a certain altitude. We're not seeing that from satellite images. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I've seen images on the ground in Azerbaijan, and we have people on the ground, and even we're not getting those reports. The damage that we have seen has been consistent with Scud missiles or high explosive artillery shells that are fired either by mortar units or tanks or other armored vehicles. Um, I'm not showing any that would be deployed by aircraft. And, when you mention cluster bombs, that's typically what I think of as an American is, like a B 52 Stratofortress dropping cluster munitions or carpet bombing a large area. The reality is, um, there are some single fire cluster munitions, but they don't leave the types of blast patterns and such that we're seeing on the ground from pictures. A lot of the misinformation that's floating around is based on previous pictures being doctored or various weapon parts that are being staged to look like they fell in a certain area, and that's just not the case.
And in the latest development, Armenia has claimed to have recovered a particular type of drone, and there is some dispute over what type of weapon that actually is, its origin, and whether it's actually been used to attack Armenia. What can you tell us about this?
That's the cleanest shoot down I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen lots of them. There were no scratches, no indication that it had been struck by anything. Um, it is very highly unlikely that that aircraft was targeted with any kind of surface to air munition, um, including bullets. I mean, there would be holes, there would be ridges, there would be ridge lines in the metal. These drones are not made out of adamantium. Even though the Armenians like to tell fairy tales, it's not adamantium. They're made out of materials that can be scuffed and broken and beaten and dented, and even hitting a tree at that altitude at that speed would cause more damage than what we're seeing there. And I can't say for certain that was set there, but it sure looks staged to me. I mean, I've never seen anything
So,
break apart like
mhm.
that.
So, if Human Rights Watch is claiming to receive its information directly from the source and it's actually not there, where is it getting its information? Why has it not allowed any external expert to evaluate these alleged debris? And do you believe there's any sort of coordination going on between Armenian government and Human Rights Watch based on these claims?
I think that Human Rights Watch wants to be on the ground. I believe that they want their opinion to be held above all others and heard above all others. They of course would like to be the first ones to break such things, and the best way to gain a following is to grandstand. You
So you
know,
believe they're just fabricating this in order to get attention and to put pressure on the Azerbaijani government to let them in?
Absolutely. I believe that this was a fabrication. If not totally, there were portions of it that were fabricated for whatever purpose they serve, whether it's to put pressure on Azerbaijan or to support Armenia. Um, that's what happens to the majority of these agencies. They receive some sort of financial backing for their projects from a government entity. Um, and I'll take that opportunity to make the point that when we're fundraising and we're doing things like that so that we can put a team on the ground in Azerbaijan, we're not taking any money or handouts from the government. We're asking our followers to help support this because this is what they've asked us to do, and it answers something that they've requested that we do. There's a big difference between fundraising and pilfering from a conflict, and there's a very specific line here.
Uh, Human Rights Watch is obviously a human rights NGO. Do you believe that even if they were allowed to go on the ground, they would have the kind of expertise to evaluate different types of weapons with accuracy?
I believe that they will probably have experts on their board or people on their team that could accurately describe these things if they were able to actually see them. It's hard to evaluate a war zone based solely on photographs and eyewitness descriptions. especially when you don't know the validity of the photographs or the credibility of the eyewitnesses.
And is there any reason why they haven't made really comments on the attacks against civilians in Ganja and other cities in Azerbaijan?
No, I think it's because they pick and choose what they want to report on. They want to be in the hot spots, and Azerbaijan did a good job of getting that information out to the public fast, so they never had a chance to doctor it up or put a spin on it until afterwards. And you did see it after the fact, but the reality of it is they they were coming through after the fact and putting their spin on it.
Mm-hmm. That certainly makes sense. Human Rights Watch and some of the other major NGOs have recently been criticized by the U.S. administration for for engaging in bigoted commentary and targeted attacks. The State Department is even discussing designating Human Rights Watch as one of the several major organizations as anti-Semitic. Would you say that their interest in the story related to the allegedly Israeli cluster ammunition is related to that in any way?
Absolutely. I mean that designation comes from outside of this conflict. This is just an opportunity for them to further their agenda. And interestingly enough, I think that this coincides with the Secretary of State meeting with Azerbaijani officials. This was a power play. This was an attempted shot in the dark and a smear, and
Mm-hmm.
it relatively backfired. Anybody that's going to have any kind of consideration for these types of things is going to see that this all falls in line too well.
Absolutely, it's some of these things hardly seem like a coincidence, but of course you never know, which is why we're here to discuss this. Is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of the military aspects of the situation and these claims?
The reality of it is there is a large portion of the misinformation campaign centered around the military. You know, there's nobody inside Azerbaijan or Armenia, for that matter, that's reporting from the front lines of the conflict. So, it's two countries that are fighting for what each of them believes in. And, it's one thing to tell the world what's going on, and a whole nother thing to rally a group of, people that you've paid to support your cause. And that's what we're seeing here.
You know, you just mentioned something very interesting. Early in the conflict, some journalists have claimed that their reporters who have been wounded by indiscriminate Azerbaijani shelling of Nagorno-Karabakh occupied territories in the vicinity of both civilians and Armenian military installations. They claimed that all these people had extensive documentation of civilians in danger. But so far, all I've personally seen online have been very scattered, badly produced images and mashups of different that could have come from anywhere. So, who are all these supposed reporters on the Armenian side? How did they get there? And where is their reporting directly from the ground? If they're there, why haven't we seen any direct interview with anyone that's in the vicinity of these events?
So there are two possibilities here. Either they're not actually there, or they don't want to report on what's actually happening, which is why you don't see any live documentation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the journalists, and I use that term loosely, that were supposedly covering this in the beginning, they may have been there exploring the region as you've been there, and I have, and we understand, that you can tour the vicinity and you can understand these things and you can research it. It's not like they hide it from the world.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe in the beginning that happened, but nobody's there now. So if you're there, you're a combatant. I don't care if you wear a press jacket and a helmet. I mean, even the Azerbaijani press, which we've interviewed with extensively, they're back away from the lines of conflict, but they're still in the danger zone, but they're not at the front lines. It's very simple to come and stage a shoot somewhere after action. You can, if you're not there recording the action, it's very simple to maneuver and manipulate things after action to make it tell the story one way or the other. That's why I feel like it's very important that we be on the ground, that we can deliver our information firsthand.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. Um, I've personally had numbers of people always pointing out that I shouldn't even comment on the subject without actually being there. Though to be honest, I don't see how reporting from on the ground is relevant to the geopolitical strategic assessment. Those are completely separate issues. But yes, it's a tough subject to cover if you're not actually there. So everyone watching this and everyone watching the event should be extremely careful in assessing the kind of information, however emotionally appealing, that is being produced and shared. That's just general common sense commentary on this subject. Thank you very much. If there's anything else you'd like to add, please go ahead and.
No, but I will get together with you later to record another segment. I'm gonna go do what I do best and try and ferret out the crap. I would encourage our viewers to, and the people that'll read the article based on this, to donate, to assist, and to continue to provide us information from the front, because we're not there and we'd like to be.
Thank you so much, and this was another great segment. Looking forward to talking to you again very shortly.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Yep, bye.
Bye.